After years of sending my parents weekly money for supposed medical bills and overdue utilities, I discovered they were secretly enjoying luxury cruises with my sister while I worked myself to exhaustion. When I confronted them, my father dismissed me with, "You wouldn't have fit in. It was a luxury cruise." That was the moment I cut off every payment, right in front of them, and now they're desperately begging me to come back. "You wouldn't have fit in. It was a luxury cruise," my father asserted after I uncovered their financial exploitation. I immediately terminated every payment, right there in front of them. Now they're pleading. I had never envisioned myself severing ties with my parents, yet occasionally, those presumed to cherish you most inflict the deepest, irreparable wounds. This pivotal insight arrived on an unremarkable Tuesday, utterly devoid of distinctiveness, merely another day of routine existence. I was guiding my vehicle into the driveway following an arduous 12-hour shift at the depot. My spine ached, my hands were rough with calluses. Another day of diligent labor had left me utterly exhausted, but with a profound sense of accomplishment. Mr. Jenkins, our neighbor, was tending to his petunias. He offered a wave as I silenced the engine. "Mike, how are things? Haven't noticed your parents lately." "Oh, they're enjoying their cruise with your sister." My heart seized. My hand paused midair on the car door. "What cruise?" He must have perceived the shift in my expression, as his smile evaporated, replaced by an uneasy shuffle. "The Caribbean one. Your sister shared some photos online. Your parents appeared to be having a wonderful time in the Bahamas." I managed some form of gratitude. The precise words escaped me. I only recall the deafening clamor in my ears as I entered my silent home, the sensation of my entire existence crumbling. Only 3 days prior, my mother had telephoned, weeping, claiming my father required medication they couldn't finance, that the heating invoice was significantly overdue, and that they might not endure the month. I had promptly dispatched $800, exceeding the customary $600, because their distress seemed so genuine. I sat in my dimly lit living space, fixated on my phone, reviewing my bank statement, the automated weekly transfers to my parents, every Friday for the preceding year, $600 with unerring regularity, my contribution to their stability, or so I had been led to believe. Yet now, they were in the Bahamas with Laura, my flawless sister, who had never labored a single day, who had married into wealth and regarded my working-class profession with disdain, and who, bafflingly, still garnered all the acclaim despite contributing absolutely nothing. My hands quivered as I accessed Facebook, a platform I seldom used, constantly preoccupied with work and survival. There they were, the images. My mother in a sundress I'd never encountered, my father holding a vibrant cocktail, Laura and her spouse, Richard, on the cruise ship's deck. All beaming, all joyous, all financed by my relentless toil and personal sacrifice. I meticulously navigated the album, accumulating proof. The timestamps on the photographs precisely coincided with the period they had declared themselves too unwell to receive my calls. Geotags indicated the Bahamas, upscale eateries, opulent shore excursions. The further I delved, the more egregious the situation became. My mother wore an unfamiliar gold bracelet. My father sported a new timepiece. They had evidently indulged in shopping in Nassau, which explained the additional $200 they had entreated for emergency medicine. The ultimate affront was a comment thread beneath one particular photo. Laura had posted about Richard's magnanimity in treating their parents to this well-deserved vacation. My parents had replied with heart emojis and gratitude to their thoughtful children, plural. As if I had been an active participant, as if I hadn't been purposefully excluded while unwittingly underwriting their exotic beverages. I didn't weep then. That emotional release would arrive later. In that immediate instance, only numbness prevailed, and beneath it, a darker sentiment, something that had quietly accumulated over years. A surge of indignation propelled me. I meticulously sought further corroboration, needing to ascertain the full extent of this deception. A swift examination of my banking transactions confirmed the timeline. My emergency transfer had been processed mere hours before they embarked on their voyage. Another $800, directly from my funds to theirs, marked with the memo, "Dad's medicine." Other disbursements also appeared, consistent withdrawals over the previous 6 months that corresponded precisely with shopping excursions, costly meals out, and weekend retreats I had never been informed about. I retrieved my text message history, rereading every fervent appeal for aid, every declaration of an empty larder, every guilt-inducing, "We understand if you can't help us this time," every thank you promising future repayment. All falsehoods. Deliberate, calculated deceptions engineered to extract maximum financial contributions while offering absolutely nothing in reciprocity. My transformation into my parents' personal ATM began innocuously. My father lost his employment. My mother's health deteriorated. They required assistance to manage their finances until they regained stability. I never wavered. They were my parents, those who had nurtured me, who supposedly cherish me. So, I dispatched funds, curtailed my own expenditures, undertook additional shifts, performing what a devoted son would do. However, the conditions perpetually shifted. Initially, it was just until Dad secured employment, then just until Mom's health ameliorated, then just until they settled their outstanding accounts. There was an unending succession of new emergencies, always a justification for needing more. Concurrently, Laura remained their favored offspring, the daughter who had made astute choices by marrying affluently, the intelligent one, the prosperous one. Never mind that I had forged my own life from scarcity, that I possessed stable employment, a modest but fully owned home, and savings, even while supporting them, that I had achieved it all autonomously. No, Laura was the one they lauded to acquaintances. Laura was the one extended invitations to family gatherings. Laura was the one seemingly beyond reproach. And I was merely the perambulating purse, adequate to finance their existence, but never sufficient to be included within it. My girlfriend, Anna, discovered me in that state, ensconced in darkness, fixated on those images, my phone clutched so fiercely that my knuckles were pallid. Anna had been cautioning me for months, having discerned patterns I had been too oblivious to perceive. "It's perpetually an emergency with them, isn't it?" she had queried after my mother's tearful plea about the malfunctioning furnace last winter. "And have you observed it invariably occurs just prior to a weekend or a holiday?" I had then defended them, offering rationalizations. They were aging, circumstances were challenging, they wouldn't deceive me about requiring assistance. But Anna had perceived what I was incapable of, or unwilling to. She had highlighted how they never invited us to dine, yet consistently possessed funds for Laura's family events, how they overlooked my birthday, but bestowed extravagant presents upon Laura, how they contacted me solely when something was required, never to inquire about my well-being. She had been correct all along, regarding every single point. She initially remained silent, simply taking a seat beside me, allowing me to display the photographs, allowing me to recount my parents' request for money merely 3 days earlier. Then, she embraced me as I finally shattered, as the tears cascaded, as years of exploitation and abandonment erupted from me in profound, shuddering sobs. Anna had always understood, had always asserted that my parents were exploiting me, that they favored Laura, that they failed to appreciate my efforts. I had resisted believing her, for what kind of parents would inflict such harm upon their offspring? Mine, evidently. The confrontation was entirely unplanned. I simply found myself driving towards their residence the following morning, having called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. The journey afforded me an opportunity for reflection, to recall other dubious instances I had previously disregarded. Like the occasion my mother had tearfully appealed regarding unpaid property taxes, only for me to observe her carrying a new designer handbag in a social media post the very next day. Or when my father asserted they might face power disconnection, just before I saw him proudly showcasing a new set of golf clubs to our neighbor. Each recollection struck with greater force than the last. The deception wasn't novel, it was merely that I was, at last, perceiving it with absolute clarity. I had functioned as their safety net for years, their fallback strategy, their personal, unquestioning financial institution. The dependable son who would relinquish his own comfort to guarantee theirs. Meanwhile, they had been enjoying a privileged existence at my expense, embarking on voyages, acquiring opulent possessions, all while perpetuating the illusion that they were perpetually on the brink of financial catastrophe. Their vehicle was parked in the driveway. They had returned from their idyllic getaway. My father answered the door in his dressing gown, surprise initially gracing his features, then replaced by a profound weariness. He recognized, somehow, that I possessed knowledge. My mother materialized behind him, a tentative smile on her face, her hands fluttering like confined birds. "Mike, what a lovely surprise. We weren't expecting you." I simply gazed at them. These strangers who shared my lineage, who had misrepresented, exploited, and convinced me of their hardship while they indulged in a holiday at my expense. How were the Bahamas? The question hung palpably between us. My mother's smile faltered. My father's expression grew stern. "You weren't supposed to discover that," he finally uttered, devoid of apology or even embarrassment, only irritation at being exposed. Something fractured within me then, the final vestige of esteem I held for them. 3 days ago, you contacted me, weeping for medication funds, and then you embarked on a cruise. My mother had the courtesy to avert her gaze. My father did not. It wasn't quite like that. Laura and Richard funded the cruise. We simply needed some spending money. My spending money. My diligently earned dollars, underwriting their elaborate cocktails and mementos. And you didn't consider inviting me, or even informing me? My father's laugh was the ultimate affront, brief, dismissive. You wouldn't have been comfortable, Mike. It was a luxury cruise, more Laura and Richard style. You'd have felt out of place. A thinly veiled declaration meaning, You're inadequate. You're not like our cherished Laura. You're merely a resource. I retrieved my phone, opened my banking application, and there, directly before them, I terminated the automated payments, every single one. The immediate panic in their gaze was stark, genuine in a way their professed affection for me had never been. What are you doing? My mother's voice was sharp, fearful. Cutting you off. Find another agent. I am finished. My father altered his approach, his tone softened, employing the voice he reserved for soliciting favors. Now, son, don't be rash. We value all you do for us. We simply didn't imagine you'd wish to accompany us. You're perpetually so occupied. Occupied working? To sustain them, to finance their deceit, to pay for excursions I wasn't deemed worthy of an invitation to? Spare me. We are done here. I turned and departed. They trailed me to the car, now pleading, promises gushing forth like a torrent. They would invite me next time. They would be more forthcoming. They would demonstrate greater appreciation.
Too little, too late.
I drove away, their voices still resonating in my mind. Missed calls illuminated my phone throughout the day. Messages flooded in, apologies intermingled with guilt trips, a classic manipulative tactic. I blocked their contact information. That evening the doorbell chimed. I knew who awaited before I even opened it. Laura, impeccable Laura, with her immaculate hair and faultless attire, the cherished offspring dispatched to mend what the disappointing son had fractured. Behind her stood our parents, and beyond them, Richard, appearing visibly uneasy. The family, a united front against the dissenting member. I nearly shut the door on their faces, but Anna materialized beside me, gently squeezing my hand. We would confront them in unison. Laura wasted no time, launching directly into her rehearsed discourse. How I was being self-centered, how our parents relied on me, how this family unit needed to remain cohesive. You fail to grasp the impact you're having on them, Mike, she declared, her voice imbued with feigned solicitude. Mom's blood pressure is soaring. Dad can't find sleep. Is this truly your intention, to hospitalize them? She retrieved her phone, displaying messages from our mother. Crying emoticons, assertions they might forfeit their home, claims they were subsisting on instant noodles. All theatrical fabrications designed to manipulate my sentiments. They raised you, sacrificed for you. Laura pressed on, her voice escalating. Recall when you were ill as a child and Mom remained awake with you for 3 consecutive nights? Remember when Dad worked arduous double shifts to purchase your first automobile? How can you exhibit such ingratitude now? A rich statement, coming from someone who had never contributed a single coin to our parents' welfare, who had observed me labor under the burden of their support while she enjoyed a life of opulence. And what of me? She added, playing her ultimate card of culpability. I am your sister, your kin. We are meant to support one another, and you are dismantling this family. Is this the brother I grew up with, the one who vowed always to protect me? She even managed to produce a single, flawless tear, tracing a path down her cheek, the identical performance that had invariably swayed our parents, educators, and everyone else who succumbed to her charade. I permitted her to conclude, to exhaust her arguments, observing our parents nodding in agreement behind her, their expressions hopeful, believing their golden child would prevail where they had faltered. Are you quite finished? My voice was composed, more resolute than I felt. Laura blinked, unaccustomed to such direct defiance. Mike, be sensible. They are our parents. They brought us up. And I have been reimbursing them for years, while you merely regarded me with disdain. Laura's face became crimson, the initial fracture in her flawless facade appearing. That's unjust. Richard and I have our own financial obligations, our way of living. Your way of living, Anna interjected, her tone frigid, is not Mike's obligation, nor are your parents. Laura then turned on Anna, labeling her a gold digger, asserting she was alienating me from my family. It transpired with swiftness. Anna's hand entwined in Laura's meticulously styled hair, the expression of disbelief on my sister's face as Anna physically escorted her from our threshold. My father attempted to intervene. I obstructed him. My mother wept. Richard merely stood by, observing his wife's humiliation, utterly inactive. The door shut on their indignant expressions. The latch clicked, a boundary firmly established. And for the inaugural time in my adult existence, I experienced liberation. The repercussions were immediate. Flying monkeys were dispatched, extended family members telephoned, expressing their profound disappointment in me, lamenting how I was shattering my parents' hearts, detailing Laura's distress. I altered my phone number. Colleagues were enlisted to advocate on their behalf. I transferred departments. A week passed, then 2. My bank account began to swell, without the incessant depletion from sustaining individuals who regarded me as nothing more than a commodity. Anna and I arranged a brief weekend escape, something modest but cherished, something I could never have afforded while underwriting my parents' extravagant habits. The morning we were poised to depart, my phone rang, an unfamiliar number. I nearly chose not to answer. It was my father. He had, inexplicably, acquired my new contact information. His voice was altered, subdued, the assertive manipulator conspicuously absent. Laura's husband had expelled her, having uncovered evidence of infidelity. He sought a divorce and had ceased all financial support. She had relocated back into our parents' home, who now had both children under their roof and no income from either. They required funds more urgently than ever to maintain precious Laura in the lifestyle she had grown accustomed to. A laugh welled up from deep within me, initially faint, but expanding until I was struggling for breath. Allow me to clarify. You misrepresented, exploited, and alienated me, and now you expect me to rescue the daughter you consistently favored. His silence served as a sufficient response. Goodbye, Dad. Do not contact this number again. I ended the call, blocked the new number, collected my suitcase, and turned to Anna, who regarded me with a look of immense pride. Ready for a vacation? She inquired. I was ready for that and for so much more. Ready for an existence unburdened by the weight of unappreciative individuals, ready to finally prioritize myself. As we drove away from the residence, I experienced something I hadn't felt in years, perhaps ever. Tranquility. The initial month of newfound autonomy was a period of adjustment. I would awaken in the dead of night, gripped by panic that I had neglected to dispatch funds. My thumb would hover over their contact information, the ingrained habit of checking in nearly overwhelming me. But those transient moments receded, replaced by a fresh reality. I began allocating resources towards my own future instead of financing their fabrications. I established a retirement fund, envisioned vacations I would genuinely partake in, and made choices based on my desires, not the manufactured crisis of the week. Lingering doubts persisted, instances where deep-seated guilt would resurface. My therapist, another luxury I could finally afford, termed it the FOG, fear, obligation, and guilt, the instruments my family had wielded to control me for so long. Navigating through that emotional haze was challenging. There were days I questioned everything. Was I the villain they depicted? The ungrateful son? The self-serving brother? But such days diminished, and the undeniable evidence of their exploitation remained. That transpired 6 months ago. I've ascertained through informal channels that Laura is now employed in retail, that my parents were compelled to downsize, and that they recount to anyone who will listen how their unappreciative son abandoned them. Let them speak. Those who truly matter comprehend the truth. Anna and I are now betrothed, planning a modest wedding, just us and the individuals who genuinely care. My parents will not receive an invitation, nor will Laura. Some might label it vindictive. I term it self-preservation. One can only endure being scorched so many times before learning to recoil from the flame. To anyone currently being exploited by those who ought to love them most, it is permissible to disengage. It is permissible to prioritize your own well-being. It is permissible to cease immolating yourself to provide warmth for others. Family transcends mere biological ties. It encompasses respect, appreciation, and reciprocity. I discovered my true family, the one I selected, the one that reciprocates that choice daily. Here is what I've assimilated through this entire ordeal. Affection without respect is not love at all. It is manipulation. Financial abuse is not exclusive to romantic partnerships. It also manifests within families. The individuals most adept at activating your guilt mechanisms are frequently those who originally embedded them. I've learned that boundaries are not selfish. They are indispensable. That assisting others should not come at the detriment of assisting oneself. That authentic affection nurtures your spirit rather than depleting you entirely. Most crucially, I've learned that withdrawing does not signify failure. Sometimes, it signifies that you have finally succeeded in valuing yourself sufficiently to demand better. It required years for me to comprehend that I was not accountable for adults who refused to assume responsibility for themselves, that their inadequate planning and incessant crises were not emergencies I was obligated to resolve, that being a devoted son did not equate to being a compliant doormat. If you find yourself enmeshed in such a dynamic, be aware that liberation is attainable. The guilt will dissipate, the manipulation will lose its efficacy, and on the other side of that arduous boundary lies a life that is authentically yours to experience. And I have never been more content.